Kristen.
And I'm Bethany.
And this is Looking for the Middle,
the Christian girl's guide to modern dating.
We're here to help you date with confidence while honoring the Lord and to show you that your identity and contentment are in Christ. We're going to give you the tools that you need to date successfully and be set up well for success in a godly marriage.
If you've ever felt like you didn't really belong with any of the extremes in dating today, well, you're not alone. Neither did we. And that's why we're here looking for the middle.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 4 of season 8. I almost said season 4 of episode 8. Starting off with a bang.
Weird. I don't know why, but like all the other seasons seem to make sense, but this one with like episode 8, I feel so old. Like
you mean season 8?
Yep. No, I'm doing it. Season 8. It seems so much.
I know.
I don't know why 7
we're so
didn't,
mature
but
and
8
like
did, but
yeah, far along in our podcasting journey.
It's weird.
It is weird.
Anyway, sorry. Back to your intro.
No, my intros, y'all know, suffer, so that's fine. No, we're super glad y'all are here. This is going to be a fun episode. I'll tell you why later because I don't want to go out of order. But before we jump in, let's cover the bases of housekeeping that we always do. So if you're not following us on social media, then we would love to have you over there. We're about to start or we may have already started it by the time this comes out, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's the new little weekly segment. We have Meme Mondays that y'all love, and we're going to have another weekly tradition on Instagram. So if you want to be here for that, you should go and sign up for that or follow us for that. You can find us on Instagram at LFTM_podcast. And then if you are on Facebook and haven't joined our Facebook group yet, we would love to have you on there. We've had several of you already join, which we're super excited about. People are already talking to each other and commenting on things, and it's just a fun way for y'all as listeners to get to connect with each other, because obviously y'all get to connect with us and we get to, talk back to y'all and interact with y'all through, social media and whatever, but we haven't really had a way for our listeners to connect with each other. So this was a way we wanted to do that. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's just so you can find it.
Yeah.
It's a private group, and then you have to like request to join, but it's out there for anyone to see. But it's called LFTM Community. So if you put in Looking for the Middle, you'll find our page, but not the group. Okay. So LFTM Community will get you straight there.
Yes, that's helpful. And we also are linking to it in our newsletter every week, which brings me to the point of, if you're not signed up for our newsletter, you should do that, because then you'll get access to join the Facebook group. You get all sorts of other fun resources, past episodes we're linking to. I have a daily devotion that I write on my website that I link a few of those every week. We have the Hallmark movie of the month, all kind of fun things happening over there. So you can sign up for that either by going to the link in our Instagram bio, or our website, lookingforthemiddle.com, has a place you can sign up for the newsletter. Like, there's a tab at the top, you can do that. So lots of fun things going on, and we would love for y'all to be a part of all of them. So let's jump into our question of the day. Bethany seemed very excited about it, and I'm very excited about it because I didn't have to come up with it. So
no, I just had an idea. So what we're going to do for the foreseeable future, when it's my question of the day, is
we're making patterns.
I just had an idea. I was like, I'm going to read like online dating prompt questions.
Oh,
and you have to like answer it in a quick format. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
So hold on. Let me pull up. Okay, here.
Okay.
So here's one. This is an easy one.
Okay.
And it says, my ideal first date, ... So like,
oh gosh,
question form. What would be your ideal first date?
Ideal first date. Definitely. Okay. Well, is it a first date I know is probably going to go well?
You are overthinking the question, Kristen.
But it's different.
No. You meeting someone for the first time, ideal first date.
Then just coffee.
Okay.
Because I don't want to
I don't think of that as a date. That's like a pre-date.
Well, you're putting stipulations on it.
No, it can be yours. I was just saying.
Okay.
I don't think of that yet as
a
date.
Well, here's my long answer.
Okay.
If it's somebody that I have no idea how this is going to go, and I'm meeting a stranger, I just want it to be coffee, because then it can last for 4 hours if you want it to, or it can continue easily. Or if it's terrible, you're not committed to being there for very long.
Yeah.
If I know it's going to probably go well, I want to do dinner.
Okay.
And possibly something after, whether that's ice cream or, going for a drive, watching a ball game, something like that, where you can like have an experience, but still like you're not in a movie where you can't talk.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I know it's going to go well, then dinner. If I have no clue, then coffee.
Got it.
So I'm pretty easy to please.
Yeah.
So what about you? If it's not a pre-date, just for clarification purposes.
Like, let's meet up and grab coffee and talk for a little. Like that's, I don't know. It can be a date. I'm just saying that's not what I went
You're
to.
also way better at going on first dates than I ever have been because I like...
You overthink those as
I
well.
overthink everything. And then I throw up in the parking lot before or almost do.
No. Okay, so my ideal first date, even if someone I've never actually met at all, would be like a sporting event. Because there's something to watch, there's something going on. So there's instant like conversation starters built in. You can people watch. And so like you always are going to have those like inevitable like pauses, awkward pauses, like lulls in conversation on a first date. And so that gives you something to focus on.
That's true. Did I ever tell you about the time when I witnessed a first date at a Braves game and she left in the third inning?
No.
Oh my gosh. Okay, no. It was when I was dating my ex.
Okay.
And Matt and Lindsay went
to
that Braves game because we had met you for dinner before.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're not a huge game fan, which is fine.
No.
So you met us for dinner at the Battery, and then we went to the Braves game.
We left and went somewhere else.
Yeah, and so it was like a row down. Or maybe it was next to me. I can't remember because that was it because our seats weren't together. So Matt and Lindsay were like 2 rows behind us.
Okay.
And there was this guy and girl next to me and she was not interested. But then also Lindsay texted me. I couldn't see, but he's swiping on an app while she's there. And then she gets up in the third inning and leaves. And
did he know she was leaving?
I think so because he looked super annoyed. But he stayed till like the 7th inning and then he left because then Matt Lindsay came down and like took his seat.
My
but
word!
It was so, and I'm like, baseball's probably not your best like for because it takes forever. And I know
game is not.
You're not a baseball like person.
But I would go to a football game. They're about the same length of time.
That's true.
But I would do a football game.
I feel like there's more action in a football game.
Yeah.
Baseball can get especially a defensive baseball game. It gets slow.
Yeah.
Wow,
anyway,
we just broke that down. Yeah.
All that.
Anyways, but that was quite an experience to watch that unfold. And I was like, man, this is never seen this before. Okay. Reel it in. I wonder how many times we've said reel it in the last 8 seasons.
A lot.
Probably a lot. Okay, so today's episode, we are talking or answering the question, should I like this guy or should it just be a crush? If you will recall, if you were listening to the 12 Days of CouchCast back in December, we did a CouchCast on do I like this guy or is it just a crush? Yeah. And y'all, this is our that CouchCast is our number 1 episode as far as downloads go of all time.
By
a decent amount. Yeah. And you think we've been doing this for 4 years almost.
Yeah.
And literally climbed to the top over Men Tell All episodes, over the How Far. I don't even think How Far is Too Far is even in the top 10 anymore. That was there forever.
Yeah, it's not. I'm looking at it now.
So it is.
Dating in Quarantine is holding fast at like number 2.
Okay, yes, that one's been up there forever, which I think is because it came out on my birthday. I'm assuming that's the deal. Anyways, though, it clearly struck a chord with y'all, and so in that CouchCast, as we were talking about, we're like, we need to probably do a full episode on this because there just seems to be a lot to it, and 15 minutes was not enough to do it justice. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. And so in the CouchCast, it was a listener question where she was kind of outlining her situation, if I remembering correctly. And she was kind of like, I don't know, do I like this guy? Is it just a crush? Like, I can't tell. How do you know the difference, basically? So today we're going to expand on that a little and say, okay, now that we've told you how to tell the difference, we're going to answer the question, should I like this guy or should it be just a crush? Like if you're kind of grappling with, I don't know how invested to get with this, we're going to maybe give you some parameters. Or we're not maybe. We are going to.
Yeah.
Give you some parameters that you can use to kind of navigate that and figure out what path to go down.
Yeah.
Also, before we get started, one thing I would like to say, we're going to talk a lot about like, oh, yes, you should like this guy or this should probably just be a crush and whatever. I do want to, I don't really quite know how to say this, but I want to make the distinction of For some people, it's really easy to say, oh, I'm just going to have a crush on this guy and it's not ever going to go anywhere and it's not going to be anything, and keep it right there. For other people, it's really hard to keep something at a crush when you really want to like them, but you know you probably shouldn't. You end up liking them anyway. If you're that person, like when you hear us say, should I like this guy or should it just be a crush? You might want to hear it as, should I like this guy or should I not? Does that make sense?
That's a great point.
Like, know yourself, know how you tend to operate, know what boundaries need to be there for you, that we're going to say, oh, you like this guy or have a crush on this guy. When in reality, for some of you guys, it may be a matter of like or not, and that's okay. So just hear that in what we're saying.
Yeah, and I would encourage you to, if you haven't gone and listened to that CouchCast, we'll put it in the newsletter. So you don't have to stop what you're doing right now and go listen to it before this, but this is kind of a hand-in-hand thing, and I think, not to pat ourselves in the back, but I think we did a pretty good job of, in that conversation, defining, like, what's the difference between liking a guy and having a crush, and like how to know where you fall on that spectrum and helping you differentiate the two. Because blatant honesty, I'm not great at just keeping a crush on somebody and not like letting my brain go too far with it.
I am.
Bethany's really great at that. Bethany is also a lot better than me at compartmentalizing, which I think has a lot to do with it. So if you are like me and you don't compartmentalize well, then it might be the, do I like him or should I, or should I like him or should I not camp that you fall into.
I would never encourage Kristen, obviously now, but like pre-engage, engaged days, I would never have encouraged her, oh, just have a crush on him. It'll be fine. Just stay there. Like,
crush in Kristen's brain means, oh, that means we're getting married in 5 years instead of 2. Like,
exactly.
That's the difference.
That's a really good way of putting that. So if that's you.
Just don't like him. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to start this off with, we're going to give you 4 questions you can ask yourself as you're trying to decide, should I like this guy or should it just be a crush? And then we've got, we'll dive a little deeper after that. But I think this is a good starting point of, if I'm wondering the answer to the main question we're answering in this episode, here are some sub questions, for lack of a better term, that I can ask myself. So number 1 is, what do I actually like about this guy? And we touched on this in the CouchCast of, if it's just he's pretty. No, like, that's not enough.
Trying to decide, do I like him? So maybe if you want, like, if you're like, well, I don't know if I like him, like maybe if that trips you up, maybe the verbiage even could be, what draws me to him? What is the pull there? You know, those things. So it doesn't have to be, oh, I really like that. You know, I don't want to get into semantics, but y'all know, I just want to make it clear too.
Yeah. So it could be a mental list. It can be a physical list. Y'all know we're all about those over here.
All about the list.
Yes. But articulate what it is that you like about him, what draws you to him. I also mentioned this in the CouchCast, but Bethany, every time I'm dating somebody, asks me this question, like, what do you like? And it's when I'm dating someone, not even before I start date, but like, what do you like about him? Because she's told me, like, if you can't tell me, that's concerning. If it's like, oh, he's really cute and he makes me feel good about myself. Like, no,
I just sat there and stared at him.
It's
for
like
an hour and a half.
I'm like, no, I need you to be able to articulate. Because it's so easy to be infatuated with this person and be like, oh, he's just so great. Yes. He's just so great and he's so wonderful. And then when it comes down to like, okay, why is he wonderful? Why is he great? If you're like, oh, I never actually ever thought about that, then this is a good Kickstarter for you to think that through and not just be, like you said, in the woo phase. Our premarital counseling, it was the glow phase and the no phase.
That's hilarious.
Were the two. And they're like, you are in the glow from the time you meet them till at the most probably about 2 years into marriage. If you're really lucky. And then our officiant goes, he's like, me and my wife, after about 3 months of marriage, the glow was done. I'm like, oh gosh, okay. But it is a different mindset. And so you have to be really mindful and careful of your feelings are on like a high during this time. And so you balance that with, oh, I can feel really great about him, but also, do I know in my head what's attracting me to him?
Yeah. And are those things biblical?
Yeah.
Like, do those things, and I'm not saying you can't like something about a guy that isn't like chapter and verse in the Bible.
Yeah.
There's, you're like, oh, he's really funny. There's no one in the Bible that
says to have a sense of humor.
No.
Yeah.
Or that your sense of humor. Is it sense of humors or senses of humor?
Senses of humor.
Okay, those don't have to line up for you to have a successful relationship. But to me, that's something that's important, and that's okay, I think. And so that's something that's pretty quick. That I'm like, oh, I like this about him. And so I think that's fine. But for the most part, do the things that you're answering this question with, do they line up with a biblical view of what a man is, what a partner is, like a husband, what all Christians should be? Like, is he hitting the fruits of the Spirit, y'all? Like, are those things lining up? Do you like that he's kind and patient and all of that? Or do you just like that he's got nice eyes and a pretty smile?
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying you can't like those things. I'm just saying
there's got to be more to
all
it.
There is to it.
Yeah. You know, we were just talking about lists. Like, obviously the Bible doesn't have your, spouse credentials checklist, but it has 1 Corinthians 13 and it has the fruits of the Spirit, which is something as believers, no matter your relationship status, that was weird, age, gender, whatever, like that's your standard. Not standard, I don't want to make it sound like you're having to meet a mark, but that's your idea. That's your ideal. That is your standard. We're all going to fall short of it, but I think it's fair to say that. Okay.
I mean, Jesus was the standard.
That's true.
He was all of those things perfectly.
Yeah.
We will all woefully fall short.
Yes.
Forever. But that is the standard.
That's true. Okay, that's good. So think through what I like about this guy. Second question. This was always a kicker for me. Do I think about this guy when he's not in my presence?
Yeah.
Because if I really like somebody, I'm not focused.
To it.
Yeah. I'm not focused in other areas of life. Now, I'm not saying I can't function, but there are times I'm like, oh yeah, I'm thinking about so and so. Yeah, or like, what is an excuse I can come up with to text him or send him something on Instagram?
There's things where you if I could go back and actually, scroll back through time and catalog how much time you spent on certain different things, some of it would probably be really disturbing, the amount of time you've spent, scrolling Netflix and never actually picking something to watch. Oh my gosh, right?
But there's something kind of entertaining about reading all the descriptions.
And I tell you what, my list, if I ever get to watching it, is top notch.
Top notch.
Do I ever watch most of it? No, I go over to Peacock and watch The Office because it's too overwhelming to pick something and commit to 5 seasons of something new.
It's true.
I'm just saying.
It's true.
Anyway, but that is something. Going back, I would love to know how much time I have spent trying to think and compose a text to the guy I like that seems supernatural and out of the blue and oh so charming, but took me an hour and a half to put together. I would love to know how much time in my life I have spent doing that. Because then I'm speaking of The Office, the episode where Dwight's complaining about them stealing company time.
Yes.
So Jim's 2 seconds for a sneeze or whatever. All these things. He's I've got his stopwatch. I would hate it if someone did that.
Oh my gosh. I have
spent probably on work hours at times.
Oh, 100%.
Trying to mentally, I'm working quote unquote still. I'm just mentally trying to compose a text to the boy I want to talk to.
Oh yeah. And make it seem like you didn't try too hard, but you really tried way harder than you ever wanted to know. And
3 drafts and the perfect GIF and whatever else.
Send it to a friend to make sure it was good. Oh yeah, you got to really think you can't have too many, but you don't want to not have any because you don't want to look heartless. Yeah.
Because especially if you don't know them well, they have to universally make sense. I can send emojis to you that we've used that mean one thing.
Remember?
Whatever.
Do you remember when you didn't know what the hug emoji was?
Y'all, okay. It's been long enough. We could probably tell this story, right? Okay.
I can't stop laughing every time I think about it.
I'm probably not going to have to explain this much because apparently I'm the only person in the world who didn't know this.
Wow.
But y'all know the little emoji that's got the 2 hands right there? Apparently it means a hug. I was very late to the party on knowing that. And so I thought it was just I'm really excited and their hands are out. Oh, yay, that's so great. So that's how I used it. Like, I'm just really excited, or that's so great, or yay, or whatever. I didn't know it was a hug.
Bethany's been virtually hugging a lot of people.
When I found that out, I was like, I don't even know how many people I need to apologize for my inappropriate PDA over text messaging. Like,
well, what's so funny is Bethany's not a hugger in person, like at all.
No.
It's just not a thing. And so I will never forget where you, I thought it was just like happy hands, like woohoo.
I did. So obviously, I still use that when I text Kristen. She knows what I mean by it.
Yeah.
But I've gotten very, very sparing in my use of said emoji when I text a boy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
I'm
yeah.
sure. I'm sure. Oh goodness. Well. Okay. So yeah. So make sure. All of that to say, if you're thinking about a guy,
yeah,
even as crazily as we have, as we just revealed, you probably really like him.
Yeah.
If you don't think twice about him until he's right in front of you, or until you're at church again and he's there, be like, oh yeah, so-and-so's so cute. And then you literally haven't thought about him since last Sunday, you probably just have a crush on him.
Yeah.
Because as girls, typically, not always, but we know that our tendency, weakness, however you want to label it, is to let our minds get ahead of us when it comes to dating. And boys and relationship and all of that, men, sorry, I should need to call them men. But we, like, if you're not really, if the mental energy you're putting towards him doesn't match like the excitement you have when you see him,
yes,
that's a good gauge of like, I probably just have a crush on this guy.
And yeah, you probably, or you like the idea of him. You like the idea of him that you have put together in your mind, that when you're with him and you're like, oh, if you're like disappointed.
Yeah.
And probably, it doesn't mean he's not great. It just means you've probably kind of built up this fantasy in your mind of this perfect guy who doesn't actually exist. Like, he's still human. Like, so walk that line.
Yeah.
Don't get caught up in those things. Don't spend as much time daydreaming about a guy who doesn't exist as we probably have trying to compose text messages to boys we liked.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness. I did not expect for that to go there.
No,
Okay.
that's fun though.
So let's go on. 2 more questions that you can ask. One is, if you're when you're trying to make this distinction, do I like this guy, or not should I like him, or should it be a crush? I think you have to ask yourself, do I like him, the real him, not the what you put in your head, but do I like him, or do I like the attention?
Say it again for the people in the back and me. Like,
yeah, you really have to think about this.
Yeah.
So, like, do I like this guy for who he is? Do I like spending time with him? Do I like him, or do I like that he flirts with me and I feel cool and important because this guy's showing me attention, and that's it?
I had a real hard time with this.
Yeah,
personally, like because it always feels good to like get attention from a guy and for him to flirt with you, and so or to get picked on.
Oh yeah.
Whether you like want to sit there and complain about it or not, you know you'll enjoy it. And so it can be really difficult to separate the two of, oh, like, no, I'm really interested in him, or like, oh, this is fun and feels good in the moment, and then that's it.
Yeah. And I think this one, we're going to talk in a minute about like characteristics you want to look for and that sort of thing. I feel like this one will be those will be really helpful in differentiating between this, because if you just like the attention, then probably you see a lot of these negative qualities in it. Not really negative, but like not ideal.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yellow flags.
Yeah, you'll see those in him more, whereas if you really like him, it's going to be the character of this guy more.
Yeah,
so,
that's good.
So then last question I'd say to kind of like ask yourself before you really, like, because asking these 4 questions, I think, will give you a lot of clarity that you won't even have to get into the nitty gritty of like specific like character qualities or like values that you see in someone. So these will eliminate a lot of that. And then if not, you can go on to the others. So last question though is, does this guy seem to like me? Because, I'll just be blunt, because
yes, we love when Bethany's blunt.
That's me. If there's a guy that you're trying to decide, should you like him or should you not, and he doesn't know you exist, it should probably just be a crush until that changes. Because otherwise you are going to do like what we were saying, is you're going to build up this crazy ideal in your head of what you imagine him to be, because he's so perfect that he would say this and you would say that. And then you would, you're building up all of this in your head, a full relationship that you don't have. So I think you have to ask that, is he even interested in me? If not, that doesn't mean you just forget it. But if not, I think you have to try to figure that out one way or the other to some extent. If you really you're like, you know what? No, I like this guy's character. I like how he lives his life. I like all of these things about him, and I would like to get to know him more, but I have no idea if he's interested. Well, maybe like we've done tons of episodes about how to let a guy know you're interested. Do some of those things and see what comes back. If he's not interested, then I think you've got to scale it back and move on. And I think in that case, once you've put that effort into it, it's not just, just keep him as a crush. Instead, at that point, I don't care who you are. I think you move on. Yeah. He's not interested. Yeah. And it's not helpful, whether you can compartmentalize or not, to still have a crush on this guy. That is just not smart.
No, not at all.
So I think, you put some effort into figuring it out if you're not sure. But if you're like, should I like him? Do I have a crush? I don't know. And then you're thinking about, I need to figure out if he likes me. And you're like, I don't really care. Like, it's not a big, there's your answer. Okay. You just kind of have a crush on this guy and let it be.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, one thing to keep in mind is if you're letting yourself stay hung up on somebody who doesn't like you, you are, whether you realize it or not, keeping yourself from possibly like finding something with somebody else, because in your head, you're like partially unavailable emotionally. And that is, it's basically self-sabotaging.
Oh, it totally is.
And I feel like we do that, not just in this way, but I feel like we get in our own way a lot of times more than we realize. And this is one way to not do that, is if you sit there and you're honest with yourself and you're like, you know what? I do like this guy, or I have a crush, but like, he either, one, does not know I'm alive. Two, we've talked twice, and one of them was when he asked me where the bathroom was. Or three, like maybe I do know him, but he's made it pretty clear that he's not interested in me, or he's interested in somebody else. He's never made a move. I have no reason to think he would be interested. Prolonged eye contact does not count as flirtation. Can we put that in, please?
Kristen sent me this thing. I think I was going to put it on Me Monday today. So it's probably last week for all you people. But anyway, Kristen sent me this thing on Instagram yesterday that was basically like, I don't know who needs to hear this, but the drummer was not making eye contact with you at church today.
Yo, I've done that.
Seriously. I was like, is he looking at me? Let me move over here.
Yeah.
Let me move over there. I can't tell.
Did he just wink at me?
No, he probably
just... was his eye twitching?
His contact was messing up.
Yeah. Is he sweating and it's just in his eye? Like,
yeah.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, like, don't make yourself emotionally unavailable to somebody else because you're hung up on a guy who does not reciprocate your feelings.
Yeah. Well, and you talked about it being self-sabotage, and I think there are two elements to that. One being, you're hung up on someone who's not a possibility, basically, which means all the guys who are possibilities are completely, like, you are oblivious to them. Like, there may be a really awesome guy that he's doing that same, like, you're putting out feelers to this guy who doesn't like you, and you know he doesn't, but you're going to stay hung up on him. And because you're hung up on him, you're going to miss this other guy who's awesome, who's doing the same thing to you. He's putting feelers out. He's trying to gauge if you're interested. He's trying to tell. And he's like, oh, she's not interested, and move on. When really you were just blind to it, and you would have been interested otherwise.
That's so true.
Right?
That's so good.
And then on the flip side, though, like, kind of going with that, along with that guy, like, not only are you missing other guys, guys aren't dumb. They can tell when you're hung up on someone and you're just only ever talking to this one person and only interested in them. And they're not ever even going to get to that point of being interested a lot of times because they can tell. So you're kind of sabotaging yourself on two fronts there.
Yep, that's a great point.
Okay, so those are our 4 pre-questions, I guess we could call them. So let's move on to, we have 5 here. Different, I have on the notes like character qualities. They're not really all character qualities, but I don't really know what else to call them. Y'all will get the idea. But
they're things to look for.
Yeah. Different things to like, specific things to look for, and how they will, like, how they might manifest themselves in someone that you should like, but then also how they will manifest themselves in someone that should just be a crush or nothing at all.
Yeah. And we kind of formatted this. If you've been a long time listener, we did 2 different sets of 2-part episodes early on. I think seasons 1 and 2. Yeah. We did 6 guys you should want to date and 6 guys you should not want to date. We'll link those in the newsletter. They're like way back, so that'd probably be easier to find them in the newsletter than to go all the way back unless you want to search for them. But in those, we talked about like, here's what a boy does and here's what a man does. And here's like what a guy that you want to be with will do, and here's what a guy you don't want to be with will do. And so we kind of formatted it the same way of, this is what you're looking for if this is somebody that you should like, and this is what you'll see if, oh, this just needs to be a crush, or I just don't need to like him, as we pointed out at the beginning. So that's kind of how we formatted it. If you are a veteran and you remember those, it's kind of the same idea.
Yes. Okay. So number 1, what you should be, or what you will see, not what you should be looking for, what you will see in someone that would be a good guy to like and devote some attention to is going to be that his life is characterized by impressing the Lord. And I don't mean impressing in the sense of like, oh God, look how great I am. Y'all know that's not me, but like, his focus in life is to honor the Lord, is to glorify him, is to serve him. And that's his focus. That's what he's striving after. That's a guy you want to like.
Absolutely.
Now, if his focus is just on impressing you and looking good for you and saying things that are funny to make you laugh, well, there's nothing wrong with that. But
that's all there is.
If that is his main focus, is impressing you, and by extension, what other people think about him. You know, is he more concerned with what the Lord thinks about his life and his character and how he goes about making decisions? Or is he more concerned about impressing you and impressing everyone else he knows and what they think of him? Is that have more of a sway over how he lives his life than what the Lord says in his word? So that, I think, is first and foremost in how you go about. The rest of these will fall into place if those are where they should be. But I think that's a big one.
Yeah, that's because you can tell very quickly the motivation by which a guy lives his life. And I mean, you can tell that from anybody just by the way they talk, the things they say, the way they treat people, the way they treat you. And I think there's something, you can agree or disagree with me on this. Feel free either way. But I think like,
I disagree.
Okay, great. Awesome. But there's something to be said for a guy who can make it known that he's interested in you, but also continue to live his life.
Absolutely.
And I think that's really attractive when it's not like, so I'm watching Love is Blind on Netflix. Okay. I'm not condoning the language. Let me just go ahead and make that clear.
I already watched it. So.
Okay. All right. Kevin and I just finished season 2 and we're going back and watching season 1 because I never finished it. I only made it like halfway through. And then when we watched the full season 2, I was like, oh, we got to go back and I want to see what happens.
Do you know there's other countries on Netflix too?
Yes.
You can watch them with subtitles.
Yes. Which I hate watching with subtitles, but I feel like I might
amend
the rule.
Subtitles are better than the English
like
dub,
overlay.
I think.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'll probably like sucker him into watching that when we're done with this. But one of the girls in the first season talked about, which I don't think they're going to make it, but I don't know what happened yet. But she was like, I think it's kind of concerning that Mark is so emotionally available. And not in like obviously you want him to be interested, but it's like, he doesn't care about anything else. Everything else is out the window. You're everything.
He's
and
100% devoted to you after the first date.
Yeah, basically. It's like,
I'll clear my calendar.
Literally, they have known each other for 2.5 weeks, which I know this is a weird experiment. I'm not saying your life is like...
But the principle's there.
And so when you meet a guy who can show interest in you, who can make it clear that he, likes you, is wanting to get to know you better in a possibly romantic way, but then also continues to, be involved at church and work his job and spend time with his friends.
Function as a responsible adult.
Yeah, like that shows me like, okay, you can have a relationship and still have a good set of priorities. Yeah. And I think when you have a guy whose ultimate goal is to honor the Lord, like that's going to come a little bit easier for him. Whereas if, everything's wrapped up in you, then the rest of his life is going to fall by the wayside once you're in the picture. So that's something I would say to look for.
Yeah. And I agree with you. And one thing you said I want to kind of piggyback off of from a minute ago, you're like, I think it's pretty obvious between the two of these,
Yeah.
And I agree. I think it is, if you know what you're looking for. And one thing I hate about like, when you're listening to something or reading something, people will say, oh, it's really obvious the difference between this or how to do this. And I'm like, is it though?
Is it though? Are you sure?
I mean, maybe it's obvious to you.
Yes.
Anyway, so I just want to, for anyone out there who might be listening going, okay, great. It's really obvious if you know what you're looking for. You know? So here's one thing that I would say look for.
Okay.
If a guy or anyone, if his first priority is pleasing the Lord and living his life to glorify him, it will be steady and those things aren't going to change. If he's living his life to impress you or other people, how he goes about that is going to change.
That's a
because
good point.
the people change. He will change. And I'm not talking about adapting to your surroundings, like socially. Like, obviously, you want a guy who can do that too.
Oh, yeah. It's more important than you think, people. That's another episode for another day.
Yes. Would I be embarrassed to introduce him to my friend? That has... We'll get into that.
We'll put a pin in that.
What I'm saying is, like, he may turn into a different person when he's around different people. Like, his interests are going to change. Like, things that you're like, wait, I thought you didn't like this, but now you... Like, that, I think, is going to be a huge tell if you're trying to figure out, is this guy sincere? Because he may be acting like he's trying to impress the Lord to impress you. Yeah. And that will you will see the fluctuation in that when the motivation is people that will not be there when he's truly living his life to please the Lord.
Yeah.
So that, I think, is one big way. If you're looking at that obvious distinction, that does it.
And that really just comes down to him being genuine.
Yep.
And you don't figure that out quickly. That's not something you figured out on a first interaction. Now, the more you're around somebody, the more you're going to figure that out. But it really just comes down to, is he genuine and sincere, like you said?
Yeah.
All right. Next thing you'll see, if this is a guy you should like, is that he will have a well-rounded, he'll be attractive in a well-rounded way.
Yes.
That's a better way to put it. Which means, well, let me just say the other side. If it's a crush, it's probably more just physical attraction.
You just think he's pretty.
Yeah. Which, hey, I'm very grateful the Lord made pretty people. All right? Like, what did I...
Give the rest of us something to strive for.
For real. What was I? I think I was in... Oh, okay. Here, side note, but this is a story worth telling. So, years ago, the movie Prom. Do you remember the
I never saw it.
Okay. Such a teeny bopper, cheesy chick flick movie. I went to see it in theaters with Danielle, my sister, my mom, and my nanny.
Okay.
Who was in her 60s at that point. And the lead guy, who's a bad boy, you know, who doesn't go to prom or whatever, and then falls for the goody two shoes blonde. He was very pretty. Okay. And I can't remember. It was like a stream of like compliments from like everybody in my party, because Danielle's like, golly, he's hot, and my mom, or maybe my mom, was talking about how hot he was, and then my sister goes something along the lines of like, you know, God just really shows off with some people. And then my nanny, 60-something-year-old nanny, goes, I wonder if he has a grandpa. And I'm like, that's hilarious. What the crap, y'all? Like, what is... I know he's pretty, but oh my gracious, like, do y'all ever get out anymore? Like, what is this?
That is hilarious.
But it just made me think of like, oh wow, our reactions to... I mean, if you can get a 60-something-year-old woman to ask if you had a grandpa, you know, you're doing something right. But obviously I'm kidding. But is there more to the person that you have your eye on than, oh, he's pretty, or oh, he's nice to look at? Are you attracted to his, you know, sense of humor, his confidence, which we'll talk about in a second, his character, his personality, his relationship with the Lord? Like, are there other things about him that, like Bethany said at the beginning, that draw you to him? Because we did an attraction episode. We're gonna have a lot linked to the newsletter, y'all. This is the week to sign up for the newsletter.
It's not gonna be
literally, it's gonna be catalog. Nothing but like, here's a bunch of old episodes you need to go listen to. But so often we immediately equate attraction to something physical, and while that is important, and we talk about that in the episode, the definition of being attracted to something is being drawn to something. And so there is a reason behind which you are drawn to this person. And if it's somebody that you should like and like really possibly pursue a relationship with, there's going to be more drawing you to him than the fact that he's good looking. And so that's what that's the distinction you want to make. It's, can I name things about him that I'm attracted to that draw me to him that aren't just, you know, things I can see with my eyes? Or is it, oh, I just think, you know, he looks good in baseball paint, you know? It's Dansby Swanson, you know, whatever. And that's an easy one. You may not want to go there, but like, because, oh my gosh, he's so cute. But if there's not anything else to it, speaking from experience, a guy can be as good looking as he wants. And if he's a jerk, he becomes a lot less pretty. As soon as he starts acting like a jerk. So something to look for as you're, you know, distinguishing between your feelings or trying to decipher your feelings. That's probably a better way to put it.
No, that's a good way of putting that. Okay. So then next thing is, you alluded to confidence. And I think you should like a guy who is confident. You should maybe just have a crush on a guy who is prideful. Like, that's one thing, like, to see, okay, is this guy confident? Is he confident in who the Lord has made him? Is he confident in the Lord? Or is he just trying to show off? You know?
Yeah.
It goes back to that, like, who's he trying to impress? Like, that's kind of how that will manifest itself. Is he trying to impress you and be all, oh, look at me and I'm so great? Or is he confident in who the Lord made him and he's fine taking a back seat and saying, you know, look at the Lord.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not that great.
No. Well, and I think this is something that as women, our radar, we pick up on this very quickly. Like, very rarely have I ever met a woman who can't tell the difference between confidence and arrogance.
Yes.
Like, with
the exception for a little cockiness in the middle.
Yeah, which that's a personal preference thing. Because Bethany and I talked about, like, I can deal with a little bit of some cockiness. Now, a lot, no, here's the door. But like a little bit, you're like, you know what, we can work with this. But if you're super arrogant, girls pick up on that so quick. So dudes, if you're listening, that's not something you're going to snow us on. Okay. We are very in tune to that very quickly. And again, thinking like, when you're talking about someone you really like and are interested in versus a crush, like, only one of them has longevity or the possibility of longevity. You don't want to spend a lot of time with somebody who's super high on themselves all the time. Like, that's just not an enjoyable experience, and it's not biblical. Like, not even is it not fun to be around somebody like that, but like, pride is,
goes before a fall.
Yeah. Well,
and it should not be you falling for them.
Yeah. Yes. That's so good. Can you put that in the description somehow? But that's something I remember Melanie telling me a couple years ago that really stuck with me. She's like, Kristen, I truly believe all sin is rooted in pride.
Oh, it absolutely
Like, you can tie every single sin back to your own pride.
Yeah, because it's because it all goes back to you thinking you know better than God.
Yeah.
That's what it all comes back to, because if you didn't think that, you wouldn't sin.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a huge, like, differentiation you need to make pretty quickly, and you'll be able to pretty quickly. Like Bethany was just talking about, of like, is it really obvious? I feel like as girls, whether we want to admit it or not is one thing, but we know.
Yes, that is a good point.
We know one way or the other pretty quickly.
Totally.
Now, admitting it to yourself is a whole different thing. That's another conversation. But you know, and you don't want to be with somebody who's super prideful.
Yeah.
You can just, again, admire them from afar, or choose, I need to shut that door and mentally just not go there, and then we move on. But yeah, that's a big one. All right, the fourth thing you'll see, and as if you need to check these off in order, is the fourth thing we thought of.
And this is not we say this a lot with our list. This is not an exhaustive list.
Oh gosh,
this
no.
is just to kind of get your mind working. Get you thinking in this direction is really all it is.
Good starting point.
Yeah.
If it's a guy that you should consider liking and pursuing, he's going to be really attentive to you. So paying attention, engaging in conversation, making a point to talk to you. If it's somebody who maybe just needs to stay a crush, there's just going to be a lot of empty flirtation. And most likely that empty flirtation is going to be directed at people in addition to you.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I think at you too sometimes. I mean, I think of guys in the past who were very attentive. And they weren't even necessarily guys that I was dating, but it kind of pops up on your radar. I'm like, oh, you remembered that I said that?
Yeah,
or
you're paying attention.
You remember
you're
that
listening.
I liked that? Like, or when you're talking to someone and they are listening to you, like they are attentive to you, or you're like out somewhere and they're like, you know, you're at a restaurant and you're like, oh, I don't have a fork, or I need whatever. And then before you know it, they're like, oh, Mr. Waiter, can we get a fork? Like little things where you're like, wow, like they're just attentive to you. I think there's a care and an affection behind that there's not otherwise. And yeah, because otherwise it's just flirting with you. They don't really, it's not that they don't care, but the attentiveness piece is missing because they're, you know, someone's flirting with you and then you're like, yeah, but do you remember what I said 10 minutes ago? They're like, wait, what? You told me this before? That kind of thing. Or I'm like, you weren't even listening.
Yeah.
You're just flirting with me and whatever. So I think there's that. But then especially if they're flirting with other people too, that goes back to, does this guy even like me? Like that. And that all signs would point to no, he doesn't in that case.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's care and affection in being attentive. Yeah. And then there's just flirting.
Yeah.
So,
and who doesn't want to be like listened to and
Yeah.
cared for? I mean, I think about it all the time. Like if you just sit there and as girls, so much of our connection is through conversation. Mm-hmm. And so if I know as a guy that you're really listening to me, I feel very like valued in that
Mm-hmm.
moment. And if you're just like spouting off a line, it sounds like you've used that for years. I'm gonna be like,
Yeah.
okay. And I'm not saying, obviously if he's flirting with you, you're probably enjoying it. So I'm not gonna say it's like gonna be one of those awkward, unwanted flirtations, but
Yeah.
at the same time there is a big difference. And again, it's like you're trying to evaluate too, like what's the motivation behind this?
Yeah.
Is he being attentive because he likes you
Mm-hmm.
and he's interested, or he's just a caring person and he's trying to honor the Lord? Like so many of these are interwoven.
Mm-hmm.
Or is he just flirting with you because it's fun
And it gives him something to do.
and it gives him to do and he thinks you're pretty
Yeah.
and that's it? Like,
It can be an ego boost.
yeah.
But is there anything more to that?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so then last one, and I think this is a really good one to end on because it's broad, but at the same time, it's pretty close to foolproof.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
As much as we hate this,
Yeah.
hold on, I'm getting ahead of myself. Yeah. Hold on a second. So, the guy that you should like will offer you clarity.
Preach.
Even if it's not the clarity you want. That still, in a very backwards way, makes him a guy worth liking.
What a statement.
Right?
That is a phenomenal way to put it.
So,
That's not even in the notes, y'all. She just said that. Like, it's not like she typed that out beforehand. She may have been thinking it, but that was off the top of her head.
So a guy who is worthy of liking will provide clarity. A guy who is probably better just remaining a crush keeps you confused. And I heard, it's Jonathan Bacluda. I don't remember if it's in his book Outdated or if he just has said it. I think it's in his book, which y'all, I cannot recommend highly enough. Outdated.
I'll put that in the newsletter too.
It
We
is
put
one
that
of
in there a
my
lot, but we're putting it in there again.
Absolute favorite books on dating relationships. Like it is good. But anyway, one of the things he talks about is not even just in dating context, but it very much applies here too, is that good leaders remove confusion.
Whew, that's good.
And so if you are looking, I mean, I'm not saying get 28 steps ahead here, but you're evaluating, do I like this guy? Is he someone that I would want to get to know for the sake of pursuing marriage down the road? You're looking for someone who is a good leader, and good leaders remove confusion. So if this guy doesn't remove any of that confusion and you're constantly going, does he like me? Or he was flirting with me, but now he's not, and I don't know where I stand, and I don't know what this is, and I don't know what we are. Whether he actually does like you or not, if he doesn't take the time and the consideration to remove that confusion, I think you have to pause and say, do I really want to like him? But a guy who has the boldness and the courage to step up and remove confusion. And I don't mean it has to be this like big formal DTR before you've ever even gone out. I'm just saying who doesn't engage in these empty flirtations, who doesn't go around just trying to impress everyone. He will give clarity in his relationships that is worthy of saying, wow, I like this guy. And that's where I say we hate it, because then if the clarity is that he's not interested in you, you're still left going, wow, you're a really stand-up guy.
Yeah, it's true. There's nothing like, I feel like Beth and I can both speak to this. It's a completely different experience when you're dating somebody and you know where they stand.
Yeah.
Than if you're just constantly like, I don't know, I can't like get a feel for this. Like, he's sending me mixed signals. I can't figure this out. Like, it's so frustrating and so confusing and so discouraging a lot of times, where it's like there is a weight that's lifted when there's clarity.
Yeah.
And
there's a freedom there.
Yeah.
And a security, I guess. But yeah.
And that is worth, like, not to be cheesy, but it's worth waiting for, because
oh, it absolutely is.
I mean, if you're just going to sit around and like wait for some guy to give you clarity who has never shown that he's going to really do that, like, don't keep wasting your time.
And kind of going back to talking about, like, we don't like this one. There's a couple reasons I think why. One is the guy you have a crush on that you really want to like, sometimes you like to just stay confused in the hopes that maybe it'll work itself out. So instead of saying, no, I'm not going to spend time staying in this constant state of what's going on, you just chalk it up to, well, that's just how it is, and that's just whatever. And you just stay in this state of confusion, which I don't think is fair to anyone. So don't do that. Mm-mm. But then the second thing is, I think this one thing, this is a pretty definitive statement. I'm sure y'all have other things, but this one thing I think is just about what is missing most in dating today, is giving clarity to people. What are you thinking? What do you want? Where is this going? All of these things. And so I think there's a temptation, and this is something that I've just been like thinking about, because you see guy after guy after guy after guy who doesn't make things clear, and you don't know where you stand. You're like, well, you're talking to me. We met on some app. We've known each other, in person, whatever. And they're never offering clarity. You have to stop and say, okay, I know this is what I'm saying I want, and this is what is good, but at the same time, it doesn't seem to be out there. So am I expecting too much? Should I just say, okay, this is just one of those things you just have to deal with? I don't think it is.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, it's just a very weird thing that I've been kind of wrestling with lately, of like, okay, at what point do you have to say, okay, this thing that I am expecting of people is too much? And does this fall into that? And I want to say, no, it doesn't. But at the same time, it also seems like there's no one out there offering this kind of clarity.
Yeah. Gosh, I don't know. That's a great question.
So that's, I've been...
Something you're muddling through.
Yeah.
Well, and once again, feel free to disagree with me, but I feel like consistent confusion in a way is clarity for you. Yeah. Like, if you go an extended amount of time where you're confused and you're frustrated and you're flustered, whether you ever get an answer from him or not directly, that is a cue for you to, like, you know what? This is all the clarity I need. Like, this is not...
That's a really good point.
He's not making his intentions known, or he's not articulating them, and I'm constantly, like, going back and forth, and it is like, no, that's
a really good point.
That's not healthy, and that's not good. So that, even because I feel like as girls, we keep ourselves in that position way too long a lot of times, hoping that we're gonna just get a straight answer from him, and you may never get that unless you want to go point blank ask him, which yeah, exactly, that's normally the reaction that we have to that thought. And if you're fed up and feeling bold, girl, go for it. Like, if you want to straight up ask him, you do that. But don't keep yourself in a position of consistent confusion. Take that as, you know what, this may be the clarity that I've been wanting, and it's not in the way I wanted it, but it's still clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm weird about throwing around the word deserve because, technically we don't deserve anything.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a bad thing. It's like you deserve somebody who is going to be straight up with you.
Yeah.
And like you don't have to settle for less than that. This is not not like, no, you want to know that somebody feels sure.
Yeah.
About at least moving forward towards something, whether that's just a first date, whether that's becoming your boyfriend, whatever that is. Like even if you don't know how everything's going to turn out, you want to be with somebody who is sure about the fact that they want to pursue something with you.
Yeah.
At whatever level that you're at.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yes, clarity doesn't mean they're going to tell you before your first date that they want to marry you.
Yeah.
There are levels to it. Yeah, like every step along the way is clear as to where you're going, what he's thinking, and all of that. But it's not ultimate clarity.
Yes. That's good. All right. Well, I think we can wrap it there.
Yeah.
Hopefully this has been helpful for y'all if you are in the middle of trying to decide if you should like a guy or if you should just stay crushing on him or not have anything going on mentally with that anymore. If you're more on my side of things. But yeah, we know this is a tough distinction to make. We also know that this clearly struck a chord with y'all based on the download numbers from the CouchCast on this subject. So hopefully this was a little bit more of an in-depth dive for y'all as you're figuring this out. So if this was helpful for you, be sure to share it with a friend. We love meeting y'all's friends. And don't forget to sign up for the newsletter so you can have all the things we mentioned today in your inbox tomorrow. And you can join the Facebook group and all the fun things there. So we'd love to have you over on that list. But we'll be back next week with another episode. But until then, I'm Kristen.
And I'm Bethany.
And this is Looking for the Middle.